Hello and welcome to P Academy. So in this video, you'll be learning what ideal voltage source is all about. Exactly. So if that interests you, do make sure you watch the video to the end where I'm going to be explaining what ideal voltage source is. Alright, so to start with now, let's look at what the definition of ideal voltage source is. So if you are to look at it based on the definition, I'm actually going to be giving two definitions of what an ideal voltage source is. Now let's start with the first one. It says this is a device that produces voltage of the potential difference across its terminal regardless of what is connected to it. That is, the voltage does not vary within the circuit. So before we go to the second definition now, what an ideal voltage source is all about is that it's actually a voltage source that produces a constant voltage. Exactly, that means the voltage that it is supplying to the circuit is constant irrespective of the components or whatever that you have in that circuit. Exactly, or irrespective of the amount of currents that particular circuit is actually drawing. Now let's look at the second example the second definition I have. It says ideal voltage source is a voltage source that supplies constant voltage to a circuit despite the current which the circuit draws. I think this is a more simplified definition to what an ideal voltage source. It says what is a voltage source. Okay, ideal voltage source is a voltage that supplies constant voltage to a circuit despite the current which the circuit draws. So this is much more self-explanatory. Now another typical example is, unlike some of those torchlights that uses battery, you see that at the point when the battery is low, like we do see, you see that the brightness of the torch becomes very dim. Exactly, you can see that. That means at that point in time, the battery the voltage that battery is supplying has dropped, has reduced. So that, for example, now you can't call it an ideal voltage source because you can see that the voltage that is supplying at a point in time has reduced. But once you are looking at ideal voltage source, it will keep supplying. Either it is supplying 6 volts, you see that it's that 6 volts it will keep supplying, even if you irrespective of the load that it is powering. Exactly, irrespective of the load or the component that is powering. Now, a typical example of an ideal voltage source is those power sources that you find in the lab, maybe when you are doing experiment or practical, where you are going to set the voltage that you actually want to supply to the circuits. Exactly. So, if you have done some of those practicals in the lab, you really understand what I'm saying. You set the voltage, okay, for this particular practical or experiment, I want a 12 volts source, exactly. And then you are going to adjust it on the device to give you that 12 volts throughout the time of the practical. Exactly. So that's an ideal voltage source. So like this diagram we are having here is just a diagram representing a voltage source, exactly, an ideal voltage source. So basically they are both the same thing here, but the only difference you might see there is the direction here of the flow. That's why we are having a negative sign here, because this is coming towards this direction. Are we good? So that is it on ideal voltage source. So in the next video we are going to be looking at ideal current source. So thank you very much for watching, and I'm going to see you all in the next video talking about the ideal voltage source. So I hope you find value in it. If you do, please give the video a thumbs up, and if you are yet to subscribe to the channel PA Academy, kindly take out time to click on that subscribe button. All right, thank you very much.